Welcome back to the Artie Lange Show. Once again, we're talking with William J. Birnes, author of Dr. Feelgood, story of Dr. Max Jacobson, guy who introduced methamphetamine to JFK and Elvis and a bunch of people. Mickey Mantle, we're going to talk about in a little bit. But, you know, we were talking during the break about what drugs do to you. Now, unfortunately, I know this firsthand, is heroin, methamphetamine, they do the same thing. You made a good point. When you're high on it, you're on top of the world. You feel like you can do anything, and you're there, you're here. When you're not on it, when you're crashed from it, you cannot function in a way where, like, you have no ability to do anything. So, but you're afraid to tell people what your problem is. So you can't make. In other words, what you do is, I found when I was a heroin addict, active, I couldn't make plans with people. They'd say, "Look, in a month we're gonna have a big barbecue. You want to come down?" And I go, if I was honest with them, I'd say, if I have dope, I'll be there. If I don't, I'll be in a dark room in the fetal position until I get more dope, or eventually I get taken away somewhere. You know, and that's what. So this guy gets so powerful. He makes a lot of money from selling this concoction all around the world in bulk. No, he treats these people for free. So now he's friends with these famous people in the jet set, and he's like a big deal.
But he didn't make money doing this. He ended up doing it for free most of the time, right?
He treated people for free, but he had a meth lab all the way on the edge of Long Island.
Right.
And when he was investigated by the New York State Board of Regents for his medical license, they not only raided his office, they went out to Long Island. They said, well, you know, what's this? You know, Vivace, right? I mean, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, look at all these drugs. No human being, given your patient list, would create that many drugs for that patient list.
Right.
Where did the drugs go? And it dawns on them, this guy's pushing drugs.
Right. He's just selling, and it says he's selling them around the world illegally, is what you're saying, right?
Exactly, because, you know, I mean, but he's giving drugs to the mob. He's giving Sam Giancana
was another.
Sam Giancana, you know?
That whole fascinating thing of, like, you know, he's giving it to Kennedy, and Kennedy wins that election by a hair, and because of that debate, and because Sam Giancana delivered Chicago to him.
He delivers the Cook County vote.
Right,
That's exactly right, because old man Joe Kennedy, who, by the way, was running booze into New York Harbor with Meyer Lansky and Bronfman back during Prohibition, he makes a deal with Giancana. And he says, you know, we're going to lay off you. We're going to lay off the mob if we can get the Cook County vote. And that's what happened. So in his great book, The Making of the President, 1960, what White says is that into the wee hours of the morning, nobody knew which way it was going to go. Nixon was ahead in the popular vote. It's only when Cook County came in, Cook County swings Illinois.
And Giancana's making sure people vote 3 times, 4 times, 5, whatever it takes to beat him.
Vote early, vote often.
And it's JFK winning. It's Giancana, and it's all fueled by methamphetamine. It's unbelievable. They're all doing it. And all right, so. What do you think happened? So they make that promise, and of course the story goes he puts Bobby Kennedy in as the Attorney General. Bobby goes right after the mob. How do you think JFK died?
Well, Bobby.
What do you think happened?
Here's what happens. Here's what I think happened.
I mean, who killed him?
I'll tell you exactly what I think.
Right.
So Bobby Kennedy goes after the mob, right? There are the McClellan hearings. Remember the Godfather 2? Fine. The McClellan hearings, Hoffa, Bobby's going after the mob. So Giancana saying, hey, wait a minute. We have a deal, right? Well, you can't control Bobby. You can't control Bobby the least bit. So as much as they try to play it off with Judy Exner Campbell going back and forth between Kennedy and Giancana.
Right.
So, but here's the problem. Because Khrushchev knew that Max Jacobson was basically a Soviet operative.
Right.
They didn't know about Mark Shaw being in the CIA, but they knew that Jacobson was a Soviet operative, and they'd raided his office, as you said. Right, they got the Kennedy files. So Kennedy goes to Vienna. And Khrushchev, knowing that this guy is on drugs, plays this game, okay? They set an appointment for when Khrushchev's going to show up. And Kennedy gets his shot because Jacobson goes with them to Vienna. Kennedy says, I can't do this unless you're there.
Right.
So Jacobson goes to Vienna with this.
That's what happens. You can't live your
life
life without it. That's what happens.
You make that point, and you're absolutely right. So so Jacobs goes to Vienna, and Khrushchev's due to be there a certain hour, and Kennedy is all pepped up. He's ready to go, right? He's full of drugs, right? Khrushchev doesn't show.
Yeah.
The drugs are wearing off. Kennedy, slipping into a depression
into the crash, right.
he starts getting panicky, and he says to Jacobson, "Give me more." And Jacobson says, "I can't. What are you, crazy?
You'll OD on it.
You're going to OD.
Your heart will explode.
You're going to be functionless."
Right.
Kennedy says, "I'm the president. I want these drugs." Jacobson shoots him up. Khrushchev finally shows up. Kennedy is so high, he's actually drunk. Drunk on the drugs. Khrushchev sees him and says, "This is unbelievable."
Right.
So Khrushchev says, "Unless you are out of Berlin, I'm invading it and I'm closing it off." And he rolls over Kennedy at that. He beats him up. So Kennedy leaves that conference in Vienna and says to Scotty Reston of the New York Times, "It was the worst day of my life. Khrushchev beat the hell out of me."
That was a major victory in the Cold War for them.
Major victory. Okay, so Khrushchev knows.
The next week, the Berlin Wall started going.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, Berlin.
Oh, wow.
But here's what else happens.
Right.
Here's what else happens. Okay, Khrushchev knows, obviously, because he's the head of the Soviet Union, that the Soviets do not have intercontinental ballistic missiles. They've got intermediate range ballistic missiles that can't hit the U.S. from Russia. So they need to get missiles in a place where they could threaten the U.S. Cuba.
Right.
So that's when they begin to move missiles into Cuba. Well, Kennedy, because Khrushchev thinks he'll get away with it.
Right now,
because
Khrushchev
Kennedy's a
knows
stumble
he just beat him like that once. He knows now, bring him on anytime,
Yeah,
right?
do it anything you want, right?
Yeah, right.
So at first, what Kennedy does is Kennedy knows about it. The National Reconnaissance Office can see the missiles in Cuba. Kennedy is like avoiding it. You know, I don't know anything. This little tweak of a colonel, an Army colonel called Philip Corso, calls a bunch of columnists and a bunch of congressmen and says, because he knows from the NRO, he's working in Army R&D, he knows from the NRO that there are missiles. He blows the whistle on Kennedy. So suddenly Kennedy, on his way to Hyannisport, there's like this U-turn in the sky, right? Comes back, now he's got to deal with the Soviets. So we almost went to World War on those missiles. And I got to tell you, Artie, when I was doing my television show for History Channel, we spoke to a pilot who was flying that northwestern route, flying one of the interceptor planes, and he said his plane was carrying nuclear-tipped air-to-air missiles over the United States.
Wow.
They were flying up over Alaska, making their fail-safe turns over the Bering Strait, waiting for the Soviets to come across, because we really thought this was going to be the end of the world.
Wow.
That's how, and the CIA knows exactly how this happened, knows exactly what Kennedy did, knows exactly how we almost went to war because of this guy on drugs. And if that's not bad enough in 1961, in 1962, Bobby Kennedy steals some of the vials, gets some of the vials that Kennedy's taking, and he says to his brother, he takes him to the FBI to be tested. The FBI says, "My God, do you know what your brother is taking? This stuff is, he's an addict. This is crazy." Bobby Kennedy hits the ceiling. He says to his brother, "You can't take this stuff. You can't take this anymore. This is over. You're a meth addict."
They found that it was human placenta, 30 to 40 milligrams of methamphetamine, vitamins A, C, D, and E, and some steroids.
Sheep gonads. Sheep gonads, right? Blood serum. I mean, they're putting blood serum into a human being from an animal?
Oh, my God.
Okay, so Jack Kennedy says to his brother, "I don't care if it's horse piss. It makes me feel good."
Right.
And he's going to keep on taking it. So Bobby Kennedy knows he can't stop his brother. So I'm going to say a nasty word. So Max Jacobson and his friend Mike Samick, who won the Congressional Medal of Honor, who's one of the glider pilots from World War II, Battle of D-Day. Right. They go to the White House because they go to the White House 2 and 3 times a week now because he's injecting Kennedy. So Bobby Kennedy meets with the White House and says, "You get out of here. No Jews in the White House." Jacobson says, "Hey, you know, I fled Hitler to come here to hear this.
I don't need that."
Right. So he writes to Kennedy and says, "That's it. You're cut off." Kennedy is so upset that he flies to New York to go to the Carlisle Hotel, begs Max Jacobson to keep treating him, begs him and says, "I want you to live with your wife and your kids in the White House and be on call every time I need you." And Jacobson says, "No." Kennedy says, "Okay, fine. But I want you to keep coming and keep flying." Jacobson gives him like a double dose of meth. Kennedy is so whacked out that he takes off. This is at the Carlisle Hotel,
Right here in Manhattan, yeah.
Rips off his clothing, starts running through the halls. The Carlisle, the Washington press corps is downstairs in the lobby of the Carlisle.
God.
Here's the president of the United States, stark naked, running up and down the halls of the Carlisle Hotel.
Doing gymnastics, right? Flipping and trying to.
He's gone bonkers. What does the Secret Service do? Put him in a straitjacket? What are they going to do? The CIA, and the CIA, you have to realize they're watching this thing, right? They're seeing this guy do this.
He became what it does to every human being, a pathetic meth addict.
That's